we chat with Robert Fangmeyer, Director of the Baldrige Performance Excellence Program.
Also joining us in that conversation will be Janet Wagner, CEO of Baldrige winner Sutter Davis Hospital. We'll be asking Robert and Janet about the Baldrige program and the Baldrige journey when we come back.
Today's sponsor of Quality Digest Live is Hexagon Metrology. Hexagon carries the widest range of quality brands. With an extensive support network, Hexagon is also your partner. Hexagon Metrology. We are metrology.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for February 14th, 2014. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Dirk Dusharme, Editor-in-Chief of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest publisher Mike Richman. Well, as you mentioned at the top of the show, this is a very special episode of Quality Digest Live. We're very fortunate to have a pair of high-profile guests on the show with us today. Robert Fangmeyer, Director of the Baldrige Program, and Janet Wagner, CEO of Sutter Davis Hospital, one of the 2013 Baldrige winners. We'll be chatting with Robert and Janet in just a moment, but first, a little history on the Baldrige Performance Excellence Program, which was named in honor of Malcolm Baldrige, the U.S. Secretary of Commerce from 1981 until his untimely death in 1987. The first Baldrige Awards were handed out in 1988. In the nearly 3 decades since, the Baldrige has become a highly sought-after prize. Naturally, for the winners, recognition as a world-class organization for performance excellence and quality is a great reward. But any organization that has ever pursued the Baldrige on a national level, or even one of the many state quality awards based on the Baldrige criteria, will tell you that the journey is what counts. Organizations that take the lessons of continuous improvement to heart will reap the true rewards of that journey. Customers and the American economy in general are the ultimate beneficiaries. Thanks go out to everyone who makes the Baldrige program work. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, which oversees the program, the applicants, of course, Baldrige staff, donors, and other supporters. Often forgotten, however, are the Baldrige examiners. You know, those professionals, industry professionals who dedicate their time, their energy, and their expertise to examining applications, going on site visits, and generally making sure that great organizations are rewarded for their efforts. And by the way, if you think you have what it takes to be a Baldrige examiner, just click on the link right below this video screen and you can find out more about preparation courses and other training opportunities that are available to prospective examiners. And before I let you introduce Robert and Janet, by the way, I want to remind everyone out there, this is going to be a very free-flowing conversation, and you have an opportunity to chat with 2 very high-profile guests. Please write us at qdl@qualitydigest.com if you have any questions about the Baldrige process or the Baldrige journey, and we'll get your questions over to Robert and Janet in real time.
That's right. Well, thanks, Mike. Well, as Mike just said, we have both Robert Fangmeyer and Janet Wagner with us, and let's just bring them on right now. Hi, guys. Hi, Janet. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
And Robert Fangmeyer, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, terrific. Okay, well, Janet, let's start with you. By the way, congratulations for being a Baldrige recipient this year. I think that is pretty exciting. You guys are right in our backyard, so that's exciting for us as well.
Thank you. We are. This has been an extraordinary experience for us. We are so honored.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Well, let me ask you. There seems, what we've seen in the last few years, actually since Baldrige became available for healthcare organizations, is that there seems to be a lot of interest from healthcare organizations in the Baldrige. Why do you think that is? Why were you guys interested in it, Sutter Davis Hospital?
Well, one of the reasons I believe this is true is because Baldrige offers a framework that leads to sustained results and actually a sustainable organization. And healthcare right now is in the news every day, and our results are being looked at, and consumers are getting smarter. So this framework actually offers a lot to a leadership team in terms of being successful and competitive.
And when you say framework, just elaborate on that a little bit more.
Well, the Baldrige criteria offers questions and in a framework format that allows leadership teams to self-assess their organization. And so it's very specific, and it leads to a path of focus for a leadership team. And that has served us extremely well at Sutter Davis Hospital in keeping us on track, focused, and getting results.
And Bob, why do you think there's been so much interest in healthcare, Baldrige and healthcare? I mean, I have noticed that over the last few years, there's almost always a healthcare winner in the Baldrige.
That's right. I think one of the reasons that we've seen is that the criteria help organizations, healthcare organizations in particular, accomplish three things that they're always trying to do. And sometimes these are conflicting goals, and that is to improve safety, improve healthcare outcomes, while also reducing costs. And it's the application of our framework that lets organizations manage themselves from a systems perspective rather than perhaps sub-optimizing these areas. And so hospitals in particular have seen a lot of improvement in their outcomes, and I think that's part of what's driving the interest.
And maybe a little bit more specifically, why is Baldrige necessarily a good fit for healthcare? I mean, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, was there a difference in applying Baldrige to healthcare as applying it to, small manufacturing or that sort of thing? Is there a natural tie-in for the Baldrige into healthcare?
I would say that I think organizations that have a strong sense of purpose and mission tend to do better. They're more attracted to Baldrige. The framework and the processes of Baldrige help an organization stay focused, as Janet said, and really achieve their goals and their mission. And when you have that strong focus and a strong sense of purpose, Baldrige really does fit well within the organization's efforts.
And I'm going to ask Janet this question too in a second, but when we think of a part of the Baldrige criteria is looking at results. So when you're looking at, when the examiners are going out there and looking at results from within a healthcare setting, what specifically are they looking for?
Are you asking?
Let me put that to Bob first, and then we'll come back to you, Janet.
So one of the things that the Baldrige does is it asks organizations, what are important to you? And so for healthcare organizations, there are a lot of outcomes that are publicly available. And certainly those are metrics that the examiner team will be looking at. But there are other things that a particular organization may be focused on. And so the examiners will spend plenty of time looking at the things that organizations say matter to them and see how they're performing and determine whether or not the processes that they're using are enabling them to achieve the results that they're after.
And Janet, from your perspective, when a Baldrige examiner came in, or when you were preparing for the Baldrige Award, what were you focusing on in terms of what you wanted to look at in terms of results, and what you wanted the examiners to look at in terms of results for Sutter Davis Hospital?
For us, it was sustained results over time, and that was one of the attractive things about the Baldrige journey, was receiving the feedback year over year. We learned very quickly how to improve results, how to course correct, and then how to sustain results. And for me, as a leader, I would say that's probably one of the most important things, is to be able to sustain results year over year and actually improve them. That framework, along with the site visits and the feedback, really focuses you on narrowing down to being able to prioritize those things, those behaviors, those systems, those processes that lead to consistent results. So for us, it was a very good fit, and actually energized us to do better.
And when you say results, can you be a little bit more specific when you say results?
Sure. When I look at results in 5 pillars. So I like to ensure that my management team is balanced and gets results in all 5 areas. So whether it's finance and affordability, whether it's quality outcomes or service outcomes or satisfaction for our workforce, physicians, every one of those areas, no matter what you look at now in my organization, we have learned to get results and sustain those results. Now, everyone's not 100% all of the time. So as part of the learning, as we've been along this Baldrige journey, we've learned to course correct rapidly. And that was probably one of the most beneficial parts of the journey, was really having our management team feel comfortable and transparent about getting results, discussing results, and then having the examiners come in and validate that in fact, we were on the right track.
Robert, I have one for you, and this is, Janet actually just touched on this beautifully, I think, the idea that leaders really need to drive this process, and I think that leaders and organizations always think that they're doing a good job, obviously, of managing their organization, but what is it about the Baldrige criteria and the Baldrige program that really helps leaders see maybe beyond what they're already seeing in their natural day-to-day activities that really helps the organization improve?
Oftentimes, leaders have blind spots that they just don't realize that they're not paying enough attention to. And that's one of the things that the criteria does for organizations. It helps ensure that you are paying attention to all those things that are going to help ensure that you're sustainable, help ensure that you can achieve outstanding results. And as Janet mentioned, having your leadership team review the criteria questions really can open your eyes, even at that level, as a basic, very simple self-assessment. You review the questions. Can you answer those questions? And oftentimes it's the questions themselves that help you realize, gee, we're really not paying much attention to this area, and maybe we need to be paying more attention to it. So the leaders have to really own the process, in a sense, if they really want to understand where they need to improve. It's important that they take that leadership role.
And actually, let me follow up on that a little bit with Janet. I believe when we interviewed you a month or so ago, you had mentioned one of the things that you did is you sent some of your management team for Baldrige examiner training. What kind of insights did that give them to be able to come back from that training and then, I guess, apply it within your organization?
Yes, we did. That was another breakthrough that we had, and that was taking advantage at the state level, sending our managers through examiner training. So they have the opportunity to see things from a different vantage point, a different angle. Sometimes when you're inside an organization being reviewed, you can only see it from your side of the table. When we sent them through examiner training, they had to step back and look at the criteria from a completely different viewpoint. And that, I think, was insightful, gave them a different skill set, and more opportunity for us to take a different look at our own organization without being defensive, but just being objective.
Is there something you can point to that maybe was an aha moment when your managers came back and applied some of this training that they'd gotten? Was there something that they discovered that maybe they wouldn't have discovered before, that maybe had little light bulbs going off?
I don't know if that occurred so much with examiner training as it did with just going through the Baldrige process. I'll tell you, one of the things that really did the ahas for my management team was when they learned to look at approaches, deployment, integration, learnings, the ADLI approach, when they started to look at and mature results through the Baldrige process. So we had some depth and breadth to our results and how we trended results and correlated them, segmented results. Those kinds of things for my team were the aha moments and really propelled them to a different level of leadership, actually. So I would say those learning that process is what moved my team.
And Robert, back to you for a minute. I have a quick question for you about this, the criteria itself and the flexibility of the Baldrige program. I mean, we talk about the fact that none of these systems, and Baldrige is one of these, should ever be prescriptive. They're not intended to say, do this, and you must do that, and here's the output. But you think about the range and the broadness of the different organizations that have applied and won the Baldrige over the years. There must be an idea that there's a certain formula that goes into this, but that the program is flexible enough to encompass all of the different inputs and outputs that different organizations could have. So how does an organization like Janet's come to the program and do it in a way that fits their culture and yet gets all the benefits out of it?
Right. I think you touched on it. I mean, every organization is unique, to be honest. And our process accounts for that, in that the criteria themselves don't prescribe specifically how you should do something, but it does talk about things that you should be paying attention to and things you should be working on. the specific approach that you use will be determined by your organization. And what Baldrige does is it asks you, is that process working for you? How do you know, and what are the results that you're achieving by using that particular approach? Specifically within the assessment process, there's something we call the organizational profile. It's really the first few pages of the criteria booklet. And it sets the context for the examiners and for the organization that then is used to really tie all the criteria requirements to that specific organization. It asks you about your mission, it asks you about your vision, your goals, strategic challenges, etc. And all these factors will impact exactly what you do and how you do it. And that's really how the criteria are able to be flexible enough in order to apply to any organization. And you're right, we do see every different type of organization come through the door.
Bob, we just had a question come in from a viewer. Do you see a strong relation between employee engagement and the strengths in the other criteria?
Certainly there are linkages between employee engagement and, say, your outcomes, the results that you achieve. There's strong linkage between what you do in terms of your operational processes and employee engagement. If you don't have engaged employees, your operational processes probably won't be as effective as they would otherwise be. How and if they're involved in strategic planning also can impact employee engagement, et cetera. So throughout the criteria, there are a lot of linkages. And that's what enables, that's actually why we call it a systems perspective, is because it forces you to sort of pay attention to those linkages and how these different areas really interact and affect one another.
And Janet, I think you had mentioned, you had used the word engagement several times in our interview a while ago. Talk about that a little bit, what Bob was just saying.
Well, with the Baldrige criteria, I think there are lots of linkages to employee engagement or workforce engagement in general, because when you receive a site visit, they are looking for your strategic objectives. They are looking for your customer focus. They're looking for anything in the criteria to have seeds, or to have a reach all the way from the C-suite down to the frontline staff. So if your frontline staff can't connect to your strategic objectives or your customer focus or results, that's going to be very transparent to the examiners. So for me, having employee engagement was a critical factor. So anything that we did, we had to learn to cascade and make sense and have it simplistic enough to have a contribution both up and down the organization, from the employee base to the C-suite, and from the C-suite to the employee base. And that is inherent in all of the Baldrige in the Baldrige journey.
Now, when we think about let's say ISO 9001 or Six Sigma or many of the other quality programs that are out there, the tendency, I think, at least what we hear, is this is something only large companies have the time and the resources to do. Do people have that perception of the Baldrige, Janet? I mean, what was your perception going in?
Well, my perception from the beginning was, we're going to do this. It looks like a good framework. I didn't even think about that initially. I have experienced some feedback along the way, but I will tell you, we are a very small hospital. We've been on the journey for 7 or 8 years, and we used all of our internal team. I didn't hire anybody or add resources. We made this part of our daily work, and we made it part of our culture. So I think it can be done because we did it that way. We could have engaged a consultant along the way, but we just used our team. And that's one of the things I'm most proud of, to be honest with you. When I reflected on this entire journey, and we were so honored to receive the recognition, we realized that it was our team that achieved the recognition.
And did that, involving your team in it rather than bringing in a consultant or somebody else from the outside, did that also contribute, do you think, to the engagement?
I absolutely do, because everybody at many levels, physician, volunteer, frontline staff, managers, were all involved in our team. throughout the 8 years.
We got another question.
We got another question in here from a reader, from a viewer. How was the customer engaged in the Baldrige journey with the hospital? Engagement is more than offering evaluative feedback. I guess that'd be a good one for you to take, Janet.
Yes. One of the things that we implemented along the way were patient visits. So once a patient gets discharged from the hospital, each one of my units brings the patient and family back and to interview them on their experience. If they had the experience within a month or two after that experience, say, for example, our medical surgical unit or our emergency room, we'll invite a patient back. The patient may have had a good experience, maybe they had a difficult experience. We bring them back and they sit and talk with their care team, the team that provided the care while they were in the hospital. And we ask them about what went well, what didn't go well, what feedback would they have for us. And often this has led to changes in policy, changes in practice, but we have found that to be an extremely valuable piece of feedback for our teams, and again, intertwined with our Baldrige journey. And that was only one example.
Bob, in terms of tying into other quality initiatives, I mean, is it your understanding from your examiners and from your own personal knowledge that the Baldrige is something that dovetails nicely with other quality initiatives, or is it sometimes become kind of an either or?
No, it absolutely does not become an either or, should not become an either or, in our opinion. Really, the framework is something that any tool, whether it's a quality tool or other tool, can really fit within. Baldrige gives you that structure that allows you to make sure that the tools that you've chosen to use, you can figure out whether or not they're working well for you. But in our opinion, all quality tools fit within the Baldrige framework because it just gives you a way to make sure that you're using them most effectively. And certainly our award recipients and others have demonstrated very strong use of Lean and Six Sigma and ISO processes, etc. So we certainly think it fits in very well.
I want you to talk a little bit, Bob, about the what do you call it? The Baldrige Collaborative Assessment, where kind of the long and short of it is a company basically can pay to get an Baldrige audit, a Baldrige audit. Do I have that right?
Yeah, sort of. Just one fine point, perhaps. We don't choose to use the word audit because that seems to indicate a particular approach that really isn't what we do. It's an assessment. And in this case, with the Baldrige Collaborative Assessment, the choice of words is important. It is completely unrelated to the award process, and so there's no inherent tension between an organization that's trying to prove that it's worthy of an award and a team that's trying to ensure that the organization is worthy of an award. So in this case, with the collaborative assessment, a team of very experienced examiners will go and visit with an organization for 4.5 days. There is limited pre-work ahead of time. There's just enough to really get to understand the organization. The assessment itself is flexible. So whereas we've already talked a little bit about the breadth of the criteria, with a collaborative assessment, an organization can choose whether they want to drill down into some specific areas a little more deeply, stay at more of a high level and touch sort of all the criteria items, but they get to really drive the cart because this is about helping them identify, as a joint effort, identify their strengths, identify their opportunities, and even jointly develop recommendations for the organization. So it's flexible, it's adaptable, it is, and it's done by some very experienced examiners, and everyone who's done it so far has really just had wonderful things to say about it.
Now, how would you compare that to? And maybe they're not the same thing. I'm a little vague on it. But Janet mentioned earlier that she sent a bunch of her people to get examiner training, and then they came back and started working within Sutter Davis. How would you contrast that examiner training to having an assessment team from the Baldrige Collaborative Assessment come in and look at your organization?
Well, I would encourage examiners as well. I think that's a very good way to embed Baldrige within your organization. So I think that's a wonderful approach to help strengthen both the capability and capacity to do Baldrige, quote unquote. But the difference really is still having a team come in with that external perspective. Everyone has their own understanding of the organization, and frequently you don't see things that others might notice because it's just not a part of what you've been paying attention to as an organization, and you don't think of it. So getting that external perspective really can be beneficial.
Well, Janet and Robert, thank you for being on the show, but I want Janet, I want you to have the last word. I want you to tell our audience what it's like to receive a Baldrige Award.
I'll tell you what it's like. At first, when we first received the news, it was a little numbing and shocking that we'd been on the journey for so long that we were prepared for the next application. But I can tell you now what it feels like is that we've been athletes in training, and we've finally entered the Olympic arena. And we are grateful to the Baldrige recipients who went before us that we've learned from. And we were really, really happy that we chose to take this journey because we have learned so much, and it is going to serve us so well into the future.
Well, Janet Wagner, CEO of Sutter Davis Hospital, thank you for joining us, and also Robert Fangmeyer, Director of the Baldrige Performance Excellence Program. Thank you for joining us today. Thanks both for you.
Thanks for having me.
That's terrific.
Great seeing you.
Awesome.
Well, it's inspiring. And, I think that Janet hit it on the head there, that you feel like it's almost like the Olympics, right? I mean, you feel like you've been on this journey for so long, you put so much into it. And I think that from the Baldrige winners that we've interviewed, we've talked to, or we've had in our media, that is common, that this idea that, yes, you've achieved it, but you've got so much out of the journey, the going on the journey of finding out what you're doing and how you can improve it. That's really what it's about.
And I think Janet touched on an important thing, and Robert also, the engagement part of it. Yeah. I think what Janet highlighted there, and also in previous interviews with her, is that part of that engagement is really doing it yourself. Yeah. And maybe that's not a possibility for everybody. It was for Sutter Davis. They sent their people out to get examiner training. They didn't bring out an outside consultant. It was kind of a grassroots thing within the organization itself that involved all their employees. So they're actually doing the work, and I think there's a lot more buy-in and a lot more engagement when you do that.
Yeah, people learn a lot more that way too, of the things. So great. Congratulations again, Janet Wagner and Sutter Davis, and Bob Fangmeyer. Thanks for joining us.
That's right.
All right, well, keeping with the NIST theme this week, the next item shows how the agency NIST is helping to deal with a quiet crisis going on in the United States today that I think demands more attention than it has been given. The news item, Rebuilding the Nation's Aging Infrastructure, which ran in Monday's issue of Quality Digest Daily, provides some data that shed light on this issue. It is estimated that within the United States today there are 1 million miles of water mains, 600,000 bridges, and 4 million miles of public roadways. And here's some additional facts for you.
A lot of potholes.
A lot of potholes. The Environmental Protection Agency states that there are nearly 250,000 water main breaks each and every year.
Wow.
A decade ago, the American Society of Civil Engineers estimated that Americans spend more than $50 billion in vehicle repairs caused by potholes.
Potholes.
By poor roads.
California.
That's right. So, yes, our aging infrastructure is a concern. NIST is helping to shine a light on this issue with a civil infrastructure showcase that's being held at their laboratories in Gaithersburg, Maryland, March 13th and March 14th, exactly a month from today. The showcase will demonstrate innovative technologies to help monitor and inspect infrastructure. Examples include tiny self-powered and networked sensors that can be embedded into bridge structures. Interesting. Small fly-by-wire vehicles that can circumnavigate bridges, allowing inspection without necessarily shutting down spans, and automated inspection instrument packages that transform city fleet vehicles into rolling inspectors of roadways. So there's a lot going on here, and some of these technologies are really interesting in terms of being able to use robotics and some technology to inspect these things without having to shut spans down and maybe invest a lot of time in people going out and doing this stuff.
Right, a lot of remote sensing technology going on here.
A lot of the remote sensing technology. So there's a lot more to see at NIST's Civil Infrastructure Showcase. So if you're interested in learning more, just click on the story link just below the video player, right down there for more information on that showcase. It's going to be good. A month from today, 4 Thursdays from now, and 4 Fridays from now at Gaithersburg in Maryland.
That's right.
Good stuff from NIST.
Well, that's our show for this week. But before we go, we'd like to thank today's sponsor.
That's right. Hexagon Metrology is committed to helping you control your processes, enhance the quality of your products, and increase efficiencies. They empower you to stay one step ahead of a changing world with their wide range of product offerings, nearly 200 years of expertise, and an extensive support network. Hexagon Metrology, where quality comes together. For more information, just click on the banner ad just below or just to the right of this video player.
That's right. So that is today's show. Once again, thanks to Janet Wagner, CEO of Sutter Davis Hospital, a Baldrige winner, one of last year's Baldrige winner, and also Robert Fangmeyer, director of the Baldrige Performance Excellence Program. Thanks to both of them for joining us today for a great show. That was awesome.
A lot of fun.
Really appreciated having them on.
Yes, and thank you all for joining us as well. So that's our show. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your Valentine's Day. Nice color by Dirk.
Hey, like
enjoy your Valentine's Day today, and we'll see you next week.
So long.
Thank you.